Sometimes the most magnetic person in the room is the one already moving away. You reread their last message like it contains a secret. A part of you calls it chemistry. Another part of you knows it feels bigger than that. Maybe they are unavailable. Maybe they are inconsistent. Maybe they belong to someone else. Maybe they simply never choose you all the way. And somehow that distance makes them shine. If this pattern keeps finding you, you are not broken. You are feeling the power of what stays just out of reach. This is where longing often disguises itself as love. By the end, you'll see why impossible people can feel unforgettable, and why calm love can seem quieter before it becomes deeper. Here's the first thing most people miss. Uncertainty can feel intoxicating because the brain hates unfinished stories. When affection comes in fragments, your mind keeps trying to complete the picture. A steady person gives clarity, but an unavailable one gives you a puzzle. And puzzles can feel strangely romantic because they keep your hope busy. You are not only drawn to the person, you are also drawn to the promise of finally being chosen. That promise can light up old emotional questions you thought you had outgrown. Am I enough now? Would someone distant finally stay for me? Could this time end differently? Here's what's really going on. The harder someone is to reach, the easier it becomes to project meaning onto every small sign. A late-night text feels profound. A tiny compliment feels enormous. A brief moment of warmth can carry you for days. Not because you are dramatic, but because scarcity magnifies value in the heart. When something is rare, your attention treats it like proof of importance. And this is the beautiful part. Once you see that pattern, you stop worshiping the distance and start noticing the reality. Reality matters more than potential, especially in love. Potential lets you dream. Reality tells you whether you can rest. A lot of attraction is not about who a person is at their core. It is about what they awaken inside you. Some people awaken peace. Some awaken hunger. Some awaken the part of you that has always wanted to earn tenderness. That last one can feel the most electric. Not because it is the healthiest. Because it touches something unfinished. If love once felt unpredictable in your early life, unpredictability may feel strangely familiar now. Not comfortable exactly. Just recognizable. And we often mistake recognition for compatibility. That is one of the quietest traps in relationships. You meet someone who is hard to read, and your body says, "I know this dance." You call it a spark. But sometimes the spark is old emotional memory catching fire. The person in front of you may be new. The pattern often is not. So here's something to remember. Being deeply activated is not the same as being deeply connected. Connection lets you exhale. Activation makes you brace for the next sign. That is why you can think about someone all day and still know very little about them. Obsession often feeds on absence. The less access you have, the more fantasy rushes in to fill the gap. Fantasy is powerful because it is beautifully cooperative. It never interrupts you. It never disappoints you at breakfast. It never asks for compromise, repair, patience, or actual vulnerability. It simply glows in your mind and borrows the face of a real person. This is why unavailable people can seem almost perfect from a distance. You are not only seeing them, you are seeing your own longing painted onto them. And longing is a gifted storyteller. It can turn mixed signals into destiny. It can turn inconsistency into mystery. It can turn emotional absence into depth. But there is a twist most people miss. What attracts you is often not the barrier itself, but who you imagine you become if you overcome it. If they finally choose you, you feel special. If they finally open up, you feel exceptional. If they finally stay, an old wound seems ready to close. So the chase becomes bigger than romance. It starts to feel like self-worth with a face. That is why letting go can feel so personal. It seems like you are losing more than a person. It feels like you are losing the chance to rewrite a private story. Maybe the story says love must be earned. Maybe it says closeness always comes with waiting. Maybe it says the best things are the ones you suffer for. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone, and you can share which part feels most true for you. Because so many people are not chasing a person. They are chasing relief. They are chasing resolution. They are chasing the moment when longing finally becomes belonging. And yet that moment rarely arrives through someone who keeps you emotionally hungry. Hungry love feels intense because it keeps the system alert. You scan for clues. You rehearse conversations. You replay tiny moments for hidden meaning. Your body stays busy, and busy can feel like passion. But passion without safety burns hot and leaves you cold afterward. Healthy attraction usually has warmth inside it. Not only heat. There is curiosity, but there is also ease. There is desire, but there is also dignity. There is excitement, but there is also enough consistency for your heart to unclench. At first, that can seem less thrilling than longing, especially if chaos once taught you what love was supposed to feel like. A calm person may not trigger the same dramatic rush. They answer clearly. They show up when they say they will. They like you without making you decode it. And if you are used to uncertainty, that simplicity can feel almost suspicious. You may think, where's the spark? But sometimes what is missing is not the spark. It is the panic. That warm reframe changes everything. The absence of panic is not boredom. It is what emotional safety sounds like. This is where many people accidentally walk away from good love. They choose intensity over steadiness because steadiness feels unfamiliar at first. Familiarity often wins before wisdom does. That does not make you foolish. It makes you human. We are drawn to patterns before we are drawn to peace. Until we learn the difference. Think about the person who gives you just enough to keep hoping. They are kind one day, distant in the next, open for an hour, closed for a week. That rhythm creates emotional whiplash, and your mind starts treating small wins like proof. You become deeply invested in crumbs because crumbs arrived after waiting. The waiting becomes part of the reward, and the reward becomes powerful precisely because it is unpredictable. That is how intermittent reinforcement works in everyday human terms. Not as a cold theory, as the ache of finally getting a soft message after 3 silent days, as the relief of hearing their voice after telling yourself you were done, as the tiny high of being chosen for a moment. It can feel so meaningful that you forget to ask the better question. Is this relationship actually nourishing me? That question changes the whole room, because attraction answers who pulls you. Nourishment answers who can hold you. And those are not always the same people. Here's another quiet reason impossible people attract us. They leave space for idealization. A truly available relationship reveals 2 full humans. One person to love. One person to be loved by. That kind of closeness is beautiful, but it is also exposing. Someone who is unavailable protects you from that exposure in a strange way. You can ache for them without fully risking mutual intimacy. You can want them without being entirely seen yourself. And sometimes that feels safer than real closeness. Real closeness asks more of us. It asks honesty after the flirting fades. It asks presence on ordinary days. It asks us to be known beyond our best moments. That can be harder than desire. Desire at a distance lets you stay edited. Love up close asks you to stay. So when you find yourself fixated on someone you cannot really have, pause before calling it fate. Ask what the attraction is protecting. Ask what it is repeating. Ask what it is promising you. That curiosity is powerful because it brings compassion instead of shame. Shame says, "Why do I always do this?" Compassion says, "Of course this pattern learned how to survive." Shame keeps you stuck in self-judgment. Compassion helps you make a different choice next time. And this is the beautiful part. You do not have to become cold to stop chasing impossible love. You do not have to stop being romantic. You simply learn to aim your tenderness where it can actually live. That changes the whole experience of attraction. You stop asking whether someone is magnetic. You start asking whether they are emotionally available. You stop treating confusion as chemistry. You start noticing how honesty feels in your body. You stop calling anxiety devotion. You start calling it information. That shift may sound small. In real life, it is enormous. It changes who gets access to your energy. It changes how quickly you attach to fantasy. It changes whether a delayed text ruins your evening. It changes whether your heart chases sparks or builds something lasting. There's also grief in this process. Sometimes you are not only letting go of a person, you're letting go of the story that finally being loved by them would fix something old. That story can be hard to release because it has been carrying hope for a long time. So be gentle with yourself there. You are not failing when you outgrow a fantasy. You are maturing. You are choosing real nourishment over emotional suspense. And yes, emotional suspense can be seductive. It makes your life feel cinematic. It gives every glance a storyline. It turns waiting into meaning. But real love is usually less cinematic and more sustaining. It is the person who does not make you guess. It is the conversation that leaves you clearer, not smaller. It is the affection that stays kind even when life is ordinary. If you've ever confused being wanted occasionally with being valued consistently, then this is about you. And that recognition can be the beginning of freedom. Because once you see the pattern, you can interrupt it sooner. You can notice when distance is making someone seem more special than their behavior deserves. You can see when your imagination is building a house where no foundation exists. You can feel the pull without obeying it. That might be the most grown kind of romance there is. Not the absence of feeling. The ability to feel deeply without abandoning yourself. So when someone unavailable lights up your whole inner world, do not rush to believe it is destiny. Sometimes it is history. Sometimes it is longing. Sometimes it is the old hope that love will finally arrive if you are patient enough. But the love that changes your life usually does not ask you to audition for it endlessly. It meets you. It reveals itself. It makes room for your heart instead of turning your heart into a waiting room. So here's something to remember. The people we cannot have often become symbols. Symbols of worth. Symbols of healing. Symbols of desire. Symbols of the version of ourselves we ache to become. But symbols cannot hold you at the end of a hard day. Symbols cannot build trust with you. Symbols cannot love you back in a consistent, grounded way. Only real people can do that. And real people are not just exciting. They are available enough to be known. They are present enough to be trusted. They are honest enough to stop turning your heart into a guessing game. If you want more gentle relationship psychology like this, subscribe and stay close. Not for rules about love. For reminders that love feels different when it is healthy. It feels lighter. It feels clearer. It feels less like proving and more like receiving. So the next time you feel pulled towards someone you cannot quite have, do not only ask why them. Ask what the distance is doing to your imagination. Ask what the inconsistency is doing to your hope. Ask what part of you believes love becomes more valuable when it is withheld. That answer may tell you more than the attraction itself. And once you know that, you can choose differently. You can still want beauty. You can still want depth. You can still want chemistry that makes your whole face soften. But you can also want reciprocity. You can want peace. You can want a love that arrives with open hands instead of closed doors. That is not settling. That is finally recognizing that the most attractive thing in the world may be someone who does not make you chase your own worth.